it's as interesting of a time as I've ever seen in 35 years at the highest level and virtually no media attention. Now, I did see an article actually by MSN News saying if you miss the rally in gold, well, check out silver. I agree with what Donald Trump said in 2017. It's the most undervalued asset on the planet. And by the movements of the massive players, whether it be going to desperate tactics like suppressing PSLV so that the trust doesn't have to go and accumulate more silver, large amounts, or the inflows into COMEX, or the outflows out of the LBMA. There are some very, very, very interesting things.
There are moments in financial history when seismic shifts occur, not with loud headlines, but in the quiet movements of powerful institutions. Right now, the silver market is experiencing one of those moments. According to Andy Schectman, a veteran in the precious metals space, this is one of the most interesting times in his 35-year career, yet mainstream media remains largely silent. The LBMA is hemorrhaging silver, forcing it to quietly extend delivery times from T+1 to T+8 weeks, a delay that signals deep supply issues. Meanwhile, powerful players are turning to an old playbook, suppressing PSLV to prevent public accumulation. If silver is so abundant, why go to such lengths to control its flow? Desperation. When a market starts distorting its own mechanisms to stay afloat, it's no longer business as usual. It's a crisis waiting to unfold. For decades, silver has been artificially held down and dismissed as a secondary asset, while gold takes the spotlight. But some know better. Donald Trump once called silver the most undervalued asset on the planet. He wasn't alone. The largest financial players have always understood silver's strategic importance, but only now are their actions revealing the full picture. If they're suppressing the price, it's likely because they want more of it. Are we witnessing the early stages of a major financial shift? If so, what happens when the suppression fails? In a recent interview with Mario Innecco, Andy discusses some interesting developments in the gold and silver market. As we present clips from the interview, please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos like this. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
I know that by the end of February, we saw roughly 128.5 million ounces of silver withdrawal out of the LBMA in the 3 months preceding. And that's roughly 42% of the entire float that they had at the LBMA. And when you're trading, according to David Jensen, who you've had on your show a few times, as much as 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day, 3.5 times annual global mine supply, against a total float of 270 million ounces or so. This is a large problem. When you see the amount of silver that's coming into the COMEX, largely leaving the LBMA, it makes someone wonder what the hell's going on. There's been little or no clarity on why all this metal is coming into the COMEX. I did run across something yesterday, and it's interesting. It was a tweet from Trump on January 7th, 2017. He said, silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet. It's been money for all human history, and yet here it sits at $16.50 an ounce. Sad! Exclamation, exclamation. So President Trump understands it, as he does gold, perhaps being the only other tier one asset in the world. And it's very interesting watching the LBMA being bled dry in real time, switching their delivery from T+1 to T+8 weeks, which all but appears to be a default. Seeing massive short positions on PSLV that I guess many people are surmising, and I agree, it does make sense that the banks are shorting the price, or the share price are shorting PSLV, because if the public goes long on PSLV and tries to accumulate it, well, then they're forced to buy the corresponding amount of silver to put into the trust. So by shorting it, it kind of forestalls all of this rapid accumulation by the public and keeps them from having to go into the market and purchase more silver. If that's true, I mean, by all accounts, it seems to be true. It just goes to show the level of desperation that has been reached by the bullion banks. And I don't know. It's an interesting time. At the same point, maybe if we look at it from another angle, maybe they are doing that so they can continue to accumulate cheap physical silver and send it back westward. I don't know, but it's as interesting of a time as I've ever seen in 35 years at the highest level, and virtually no media attention. Now, I did see an article actually by MSN News saying if you missed the rally in gold, well, check out silver. I agree with what Donald Trump said in 2017. It's the most undervalued asset on the planet. And by the movements of the massive players, whether it be going to desperate tactics like suppressing PSLV so that the trust doesn't have to go and accumulate more silver, large amounts, or the inflows into Colmex, or the outflows out of the LBMA. There are some very, very, very interesting things going on, and I guess we'll see what ultimately happens. But it's far beyond what we are being told. Just Trump tariffs.
If silver were truly abundant, if the market were functioning normally, there would be no need for these extreme measures. But what we're seeing today is a market in distress, where the very institutions that once worked to suppress silver's price are now showing signs of desperation. Let's break it down. The LBMA's dwindling reserves have forced it to quietly extend delivery times from T+1 to T+8 weeks, a massive red flag in the world of physical metals. This isn't just a scheduling issue. It's a sign that physical silver is becoming harder to source in large quantities. A delay of this magnitude suggests that demand is outpacing available supply, and that the system is scrambling to maintain the illusion of control. At the same time, we're witnessing an aggressive effort to suppress PSLV, the Sprott Physical Silver Trust. Why? Because PSLV is one of the few vehicles that requires actual physical silver purchases to back new shares. The more people buy PSLV, the more silver the trust has to acquire, and if the supply isn't there to meet that demand, the market risks a public revelation that silver is scarcer than we've been led to believe. This is where the game becomes clear. If institutions can short PSLV, if they can manipulate its price downward, it discourages public investment, preventing a surge in physical demand. This isn't about normal market fluctuations. This is a coordinated strategy to keep silver cheap and available for those who understand its true value. And those people? They aren't retail investors. They aren't casual market participants. They are the world's most powerful financial players. So the real question is this: what do these insiders know that the rest of the world doesn't? Why are silver supplies being drained from the LBMA? Why is the COMEX seeing unprecedented inflows? Why are institutions fighting so hard to suppress public access to physical silver, all while extending their own delivery times? Let's get back to Andy's video for more insights.
This is part and parcel for the reason why so few people are ever truly successful in investing, because they follow the herd. And when you look at the media attention that we've seen on gold and silver, I'll give you an analogy why this is the way that it is. So I was working out the other day in the health club, and at the end of my workout, I get on the elliptical machine for about a half hour, and I never watch CNBC ever. But it's right here in front of me. And this was last week, a few days ago, maybe Wednesday or so. Gold's at all-time highs at this point, $3,050 an ounce or whatnot, and should be all over the place in terms of media coverage. There's a stream that goes at the bottom of this of the page like this, and that shows individual stocks. And then underneath that are three boxes, and they flip like this every 5 or 6 seconds. And we'll say the indices like the Dow, the NASDAQ, the Nikkei, the S&P, gold, Bitcoin. So I'm watching it for a while. I'm like, this something doesn't seem right here. And I watch gold come up. Now, again, if you would have told me, Mario, at any point in my career that gold would be $3,050 an ounce, and most people will have no idea, zero because there's no media attention, I'd say there's no way. There's just absolutely no way. I mean, I remember when gold finally broke through 400, it was all over the place, let alone 1,000. But here we are at 3,050 and virtually no attention, and it comes through gold. And I count, one, two, three, and this took, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, 44 turns of the boxes before gold came up again. During that time, I also counted how many times Bitcoin or Bitcoin futures were in the same boxes. 1 out of 44 for gold, 9 out of 44 for Bitcoin. Now, do you think that there is a message in that? I do. I'm thinking to myself, gold's at all-time highs. The LBMA is being drained. The United States has become a net importer of gold. Massive, largest deliveries in the history of the COMEX ever. And yet 1 out of 44, 9 out of 44 for Bitcoin. And I think this is the problem, is that there are a lot of well-read people just reading the wrong stuff, being followed by or being following the wrong source of information. And so, to your point, no, I mean, yes, there's greater demand, but nowhere near what it should be. And it's largely in part to the fact that the media, again, and if you think that there's enough power to go in and actually suppress PSLV by the banks, there's probably enough power up at that level to suppress the information from the media, or to use the media as a tool of propaganda, not only to keep people from, realizing what gold and silver have been doing and the potential that they offer, but an agenda to push people in a certain direction. You would think there'd be more journalistic integrity across mainstream media, but there's not.
No.
And that's why I think there are people who have been misdirected. You have massive, I think the largest percentage of the retail public invested in equities, like ever. It's over 50% right now. I mean, it's like the largest ever. And at the same time, you have the Mag 7, the hedge funds, having their lowest allocation to the Mag 7 in 2 years, just as the public is jumping in with both feet. The whole thing is upside down to me. And I would just simply tell you, Mario, that I look at what's happening at the highest levels as an indicator of where things are ultimately going, less the public, because the public is always late to catch on, always. And this time will be no different.
What Andy just laid out is more than a market observation. It's a wake-up call. The precious metals market isn't just undervalued, it's deliberately hidden from public view. While gold reaches new all-time highs and silver sees unprecedented movement, the mainstream media remains eerily silent. And that's not an accident. Look at the numbers. One mention of gold for every 44 cycles on CNBC. Meanwhile, Bitcoin, a speculative asset that fits neatly into the digital financial agenda, gets 9 times the coverage. What does that tell you? It tells you that the narrative is being shaped. It tells you that the financial elite have no interest in letting the average investor wake up to the true role of gold and silver until it's too late. And this isn't just about media bias. It's about control. If the biggest banks can manipulate PSLV, keeping the price of silver artificially low, do you really think it's beyond them to manipulate the information you see every day? This is how wealth transfers happen. Keep the public focused on distractions while quietly accumulating the real assets. It's no coincidence that while retail investors pile into overvalued equities, institutions are quietly reducing exposure to the same stocks. It's no coincidence that while the US media ignores gold and silver, the country has suddenly become a net importer of gold, something that hasn't happened in decades. These are not random events. These are signals. So, where does that leave you? History has shown that the masses are always the last to recognize a shift, because they're trained to follow the herd. But the truth is hiding in plain sight. The real question is, will you act before the reset happens, or will you only realize the game was rigged when it's too late? The institutions have already made their choice. Now it's time for you to make yours. If this video has opened your eyes to the truth behind the gold and silver markets, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's get the conversation going. You don't want to miss the next deep dive into what's really happening behind the scenes. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.